Disclaimer: we do not condone the use of any of the substance mentioned in this video, which was made with purely educational purpose. This video complies with community guidelines and is eligible for monetization. Ancient Greece, home of democracy, Western values, science, philosophy, and LSD. Good day, brothers and sisters. This is the first installment of Psych History. No, I don't have association with this guy, and yes, I am not very original when it comes to names. Please do not bully me. And I am here to present to the whole world the deep history of psychedelics and humanity. From the day of the hunter-gatherers, the intellectuals of the 20th century, and the anti-war movement. Today's first episode, we focus on Greece. Not this one. This one. And how they use psychedelic substance to influence their perspective and thinking, which may have later influenced Western civilization as we know it. Before we start, let's define a psychedelic. We could technically define it as any substance that changes and distorts the consciousness of an individual. The problem with this definition is that everything has the capacity to change our consciousness, from weed, alcohol to green tea. And yes, to those of the audience that have a sweet tooth, sugar will actually fit that. Therefore, I will trust almighty and sweet merciful Google definition as relating to or denoting substance, especially LSD, that produce hallucinations and apparent expansion of consciousness. Thank you, almighty Google. Please don't demonetize me. Back to Greek philosophers and LSD. Where does the claim that the Greek philosopher did LSD come from? What are the evidence? Why should you trust this YouTube channel? To do so, we must go back in time. Ancient Greece. The Eleusinian Mysteries. The Eleusinian Mysteries were initiation rituals celebrated every year in Eleusis. I am probably butchering this name. These rituals were celebrated for Demeter, the goddess of harvest and grain, and her daughter Persephone, the queen of the underworld, which is quite symbolical if you ask me. Keep in mind that harvest and nourishment is usually associated with life, while Persephone is the queen of the underworld. Therefore, they are celebrating the feminine representation of life and death. This idea is probably not originally mine. It came to me, but I will most certainly take it with a grain of salt. I just find it interesting. However, back to it. Now, according to sources, Wikipedia, these rituals represented the story of how Persephone was kidnapped by Hades and forced into the underworld. These rituals were divided into 3 stages: the descent, the search, and the ascent. The last one associated with the reunion between Persephone and her mother Demeter. Apart from the details, most of the mysteries and its rituals are pretty much unknown. There are a lot of writings by historians, but I cannot cover all of it in a single video. A lot of it were kept in secret, and it seems that it was taboo to even talk or write about it. Of course, as with all rules, someone is going to break it. The most interesting thing about these mysteries were in fact the use of a beverage given to initiates, Kykeon. The initiates who took this beverage and wrote about it stated how it led them to have a revelatory states of mind and even out-of-body experiences, an effect which is common with magic mushrooms and acid. Supposedly, among the ingredients of this beverage we can see barley, honey, wine, and cheese. But the most important ingredient, the one that led to many initiates to have revelatory states of religious ecstasy, it seems to have been ergot, a fungi that grows from rye. This fungi contains lysergic acid, which then can be processed to lysergic acid diethylamide. I'm not a scientist guy, as you can see. This idea is not rare at all. According to Derek Collins in his work Magic in the Ancient World, the use of substances and entheogens were pretty common among the Greek cults in ancient Greece, and Albert Hoffman, the first modern Western scientist to synthesize LSD, said how early man in ancient Greece could have arrived at an hallucinogen from ergot. He may have done this from ergot growing on wheat or barley. An easier way would have been to use ergot growing in the common wild grass of Papsalum. In Gordon Ransom, Albert Hoffman, and Carl Rock work titled The Road to Eleusis, a detailed investigation in regards to the mysteries is analyzed in order to observe the relationship between psychedelics and the Greeks. I have put a link on the description if you want to read it. Believe me, it's actually quite interesting. Ransom quotes one of the ancient authors present at the mysteries, Aristides the Rhetor, who wrote down how Eleusis is a shrine common to the whole world, and all of the divine things that exist among men. It is both the most awesome and the most luminous. At what place in the world have more miraculous tidings been sung, and where have been the dromena called for greater emotion? Where has there been greater rivalry between seeing and hearing? Seeing and hearing. In case you didn't know, LSD affects the visual cortex of the brain, creating various effects, including a similar one to synesthesia. It is not exactly synesthesia, but it's actually pretty close to it. This is not the only reference to the psychedelic nature of the mysteries, of course. In The Road to Eleusis, it is reported how the Greeks would refer to mushrooms as food of the gods. Director of Ancient History Encyclopedia, Mark Joshua, in his article The Eleusinian Mysteries, The Rites of Demeter, it is pointed out how many famous historical figures describe these mysteries. Plato wrote in Phaedo, our mysteries had a very real meaning. He that has been purified and initiated shall dwell with the gods. He also writes about a warrior called Er who died in the battlefield but come back in order to tell his brother in arms that is just the beginning of a new journey. Historian Plutarch told us why, after the death of their daughter, how, because of those sacred and faithful promises given in the mysteries, we hold it firmly for an undoubted truth that our soul is incorruptible and immortal. Let us behave ourselves accordingly. He also said, when a man dies, he is like those who are initiated into the mysteries. Our whole life is a journey but tortuous wait without outlet. Now of quitting it comes terror, shuddering, fear, amazement, then light that moves to meet you, pure meadows that receive you, song and dances in holy apparitions. And Cicero reveals how nothing is higher than these mysteries. They have not only shown us how to live joyfully, but they have taught us how to die with a better hope. This type of revelatory and transcendental moments are not only typical among the ancient Greeks, we can observe them among many different cultural and civilization settings throughout history, from the Egyptians to South American indigenous groups. So what happened to the mysteries? Why don't we see them anymore? The rituals lost popularity during the classical era of Greece, as one points out how they started developing a certain level of fear towards the use of substance, which could be considered as the start of a religious taboo. In the case of the Eleusinian Mysteries, it was a slow and painful process. The temple of Demeter was sacked by the Sarmatians to later be restored by the philosopher emperor, and my man, Marcus Aurelius, who also partook in these rituals. And then came Christianity. With the rise of this Abrahamic religion, the Eleusinian mysteries and legends began to fade. The last nail in the coffin was when Emperor Theodosius I enacted his persecution of paganism during the late Roman Empire. The last remnants of the rituals were neutralized. And lastly, the last sacred sites were destroyed by Arian Christians under the leadership of Alaric, the king of the gods. The Eleusinian mysteries disappear in the cruel annals of time. So why is this important? Why is a foreigner investing time and effort towards promoting a psychedelic history on a YouTube channel that may or may not become famous? Well, This is a complicated question for me. I need to say, for the sake of harm reduction and responsible consumption, that no individual should ever partake in this type of activities. That being said, times are changing. Denver decriminalized magic mushrooms, and we have resounding academic institutions such as Johns Hopkins University and the Imperial College of London investigating about psychedelics. And I believe that every single approach to psychedelics are important: pharmaceutical, physiological, ethical, sociological, and more. And among these approaches, I decided to focus on the historical one. It is important, before we make any decision that could affect the way our society works and how we treat mental health, we must consider how our ancestors approached this substance, which they consider sacred. Again, I am not promoting the use of substances. This video is for education purpose only. I'll see you next time. For more videos, subscribe to Psyched History, and please like and share this video to spread the word and history of this substance. If you have any recommendation for future videos or any feedback, feel free to leave a comment below or send me a direct message. I'll see you later. Take care.